What's up, everybody? This is the Booch, and welcome to episode 13 of the Boochcast reviews, Darkside of the 90s, and this is going to be a fun one, ladies and gentlemen, and of course I am joined once again by the one, the only, the broke soulless ginger, Mr. Zack Scott.
What's up, dude and dudettes? Yes, it's me, the broke soldier, Zack Scott. Generally, I'm not that broke. You can probably tell, ladies and gentlemen, that I have a bit of a problem right now. I'm having a bit of a dental problem. It looks like somebody slugged me in the jaw, even though I never deserved to be slugged in the jaw. Not one damn bit.
Yeah, he's got that bit of a baseball player look right there, which is kind of funny and ironic because he's got a baseball player look, and apparently the only way to get rid of it is to try them roids. Try them roids.
Yeah, that's not the roids that make me big. Anyways, not the point.
In fact, they do the opposite. Anyway.
They probably do.
Well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we got a fun one for you guys this week. It's one that, now, if you've watched previous episodes of Darkside of the 90s, especially if you've been going down the playlist, you know that we have teased this episode for quite some time. Mm-hmm. We've had certain topics, certain situations where this topic was brought up, but we kept telling you guys we would address it later. And the reason we said that is because we didn't want to step on this episode and fuck anything up. Well, now, you ain't got to worry no more because it's later. Later just arrived. Because today we are covering Cops. Bad boys, bad boys.
Manny, can I do the skit?
Do it again.
Gimmick. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? I'm not gonna do the lyrics courtesy of Martin Lawrence and Will Smith because that's their bit right there. But otherwise than that, if you didn't sing along to this song when the show came on, something's wrong with you.
Yeah. Police that give me no break.
No break.
I don't know the rest of the lyrics, but I just like to do the voice.
Yeah, the voice.
One of the craziest reality shows
of
all time. And here's the interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen. Like most times we've had with Dark Side of the Ring, this is probably my first time to my knowledge that this was on Dark Side of the 90s, a disclaimer pops up. Now, this is not one of our Boochcast disclaimers that we're known for doing. This was an actual disclaimer from Vice TV and the people who created Dark Side of the 90s. And the disclaimer goes like this. This episode comments on the television series Cops. People appearing on Cops are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Which I know is not the norm today, but it was at the time this was created. Inclusion in this episode does not mean they have committed a criminal offense.
True.
Now, the reason I have to say that is because here's a key thing. And I'm probably going to be bringing this up again a little bit later, but since it involves a disclaimer, I'll bring it up now. When you get arrested by the cops, a police officer's job is not to determine your guilt or innocence. Their job is just to bring you in. Mm-hmm. If someone believes you have committed a crime and they can get a warrant for your arrest, or if you're just being a douchebag in public and you provoke cops to do it, you get arrested. Mm-hmm. But their only job is just to arrest you.
Yes.
That's why whenever you see people getting handcuffed, they latch on to that one phrase, that one statement they make all the time, and it goes a little something like this. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights as I have just stated them? That's it.
Pretty much.
That's why they tell you you have the right to an attorney. Because your guilt or innocence is determined when you go to court. And I'll give you another thing here. When you get pulled over by the cops, and this is going to be another running theme I'm going to talk about on this show. All the cop is required to do, if you do something, is give you a ticket. Now, sometimes it lets you off with warnings. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they can be lenient. But there are going to be times where they give you a ticket. There's another thing they do when they hand you your ticket. They tell you about a little thing called a court date. Mm-hmm. Do you know why those tickets have a court date? Do you know why?
Why?
Because again, they're not allowed to tell you you're guilty. Mm-hmm. So if you believe a cop is pulling you over unjustly, if you feel you don't deserve this ticket, instead of being a fucking dumbass and mouthing off at the cop, here's what you do. You take the cop to court on that date. And the judge will tell you, what is your plea for this? And if you believe you're not guilty, you say, not guilty. And guess what? They set a trial date. You come in for that trial date. The cop has the option to appear in court. If the cop appears in court, that's when you're allowed to argue. That's when you're allowed to fight verbally. And that's when you're allowed to say, this motherfucker pulled me over unjustly. Don't say motherfucker, though, because the judges don't like that. But you can say, Your Honor, this officer treated me unfairly. Here's my evidence to prove that. You don't argue with the cop while he's fucking pulling you over.
No.
You argue with the cop in court.
Much.
That's when you're allowed to speak your piece. Mm-hmm. Just take your ticket, say thank you, and drive off. Because if you start mouthing off at the jaw, like a lot of you self-entitled young people do, that's what's going to make the cop go, all right, step out of the car. Mm-hmm. You could have avoided that whole thing if you just kept your fucking mouth shut. But everybody today thinks, oh, I can say whatever I want and I can do whatever I want because my mommy and daddy said I'm special. Well, your mom and dad don't rule the fucking world.
Nope.
And I'm not saying there aren't bad cops out there. We're going to get into that in this story. This is an overall statement I want to make. A lot of the shit that you see happening could easily be avoided if people would just shut the fuck up, take the fucking ticket, and if you feel you were unjust, have your day in court. Most cops, when they give you the ticket, they just want to give you the ticket and fucking leave. Very few cops, if any, are interested in wanting to pull you out of the car and handcuff you. They just want to hand you the ticket so they can meet their fucking quota. That's all they want to do. You did something wrong, here's your ticket. And also, you also notice, when they tell you at the end to sign that little thing at the bottom, what do they tell you? This signature is not an omission of guilt. It is just you acknowledging that you had the conversation with the cop. So no, you're not going to go, I refuse to sign that because I'm not guilty. Cop doesn't care. This is just a conversation that says the cop spoke to you, told you everything, and you signed the document. Your guilt or innocence is determined when you go to court. Or if you just decide not to go to court and just pay the fucking thing. That's it. You can pay it and move on, or go to court. Unless it's a mandatory court thing. Then you fucking go. This is simple shit. Okay? Don't believe all the crap you see on the internet. 95% of police interactions are usually, do you know why I pulled you over? Here's your license and registration. It's fucking simple. It's that fucking simple. Don't overcomplicate this and stop having a sense of fucking entitlement. Understand the fact. The cop has authority over you. They do. That's one of the perks of being a cop. They are the law. 9 times out of 10, if you treat them with respect, you can avoid a lot of shit. But if you try to bow up to them like a swinging dick motherfucker, they'll cut that shit off like Lorena Bobbitt. And yes, I am foreshadowing something we talk about later. I don't know. Have I made my point or do you need to keep talking?
No, I think you made your point.
Thank you. All right, that being said, that's a disclaimer we get at the beginning of this. Like I said, I may talk more about this later. Now let's get to the show. In the early 90s, Americans are introduced to an arresting new kind of TV. Mm-hmm. They showed the police for who they really are to a public that didn't know. It showed the war on drugs and that it was a great decade to be an officer because almost everyone loved and respected the police at this time. Keep in mind, this is in the 90s. Mm-hmm. People actually liked the police back then. From its very first episode, Cops burst onto TV screens with its brash, in-your-face realism. And in the 90s, audiences couldn't get enough. Watching the show was like being in the passenger seat of a police car. And a lot of times it was. And I didn't realize that. Like, a lot of times, like, in the beginning, you see the cop in the car, and he's looking over. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of times I'm out here on patrol, and sometimes, you know, things get a little crazier. Or especially when Cartman, when they did the spin off on cops. Hey, you know, I've been on the patrol a lot these days, you know, and sometimes these criminals, they get a little wiry, so sometimes I gotta go undercover. and it just shows him, like, it shows him, like, in a dress, like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Well, hoping to spend some time with you, gorgeous. Sir, step out of the car, please. He's like, maybe this will teach you to respect my authority. By the way, that's where respect my authority came from for all the South Park fans. Mm-hmm. If you're wondering why Cartman never got the phrase, respect my authority. It was from the Cops parody episode. Where Cartman was just beating people to death with billy clubs. It didn't matter who you were. And by the way, it was all white people getting hit with the billy clubs, by the way. With its raw fly-on-the-wall style, Cops was an edge-of-your-seat adrenaline rush. You felt like you were in that car, on that foot chase, and handcuffing the guy right along with the police. Yeah. Yeah, it was very much like a POV kind of thing.
Yeah, it was.
You really felt like you were there. Because you never saw any of this shit.
Nope.
Literally, the way they did this was amazing. In fact, a lot of the times, one of the jokes people used to always make about cops is the fact they were so close to the action, you were like, how in shape is that cameraman? Because back then, you're carrying a big-ass fucking camera.
Yeah,
it's not like today where you have those little handheld ones where you can just, like, I can jog briskly and shoot stuff. I know, you're like, you got this big-ass heavy thing on your arm like a bazooka, and you're running, and you're right there on the scene.
Yep, pretty much.
Like, that had to take some, I don't know what kind of calisthenics the cameraman had to do.
I couldn't do that.
But no. If I'm the cameraman following the cop, I'm missing half the fucking show.
Pretty much.
Literally, most of the footage is going to be the camera looking down the floor and me going, oh God, I can't. What the fuck? Why am I here? Bullshit. Slow the fuck down, assholes! Jesus!
Where are you? It's like, you ran too fast. That's the point.
Can I get a motor scooter? Fuck! The show was unlike anything television audience had ever seen. It was real life, raw, uncut arrests. The only downside is they pick and choose what to portray to give us this vision of policing that is not only inaccurate, but is deeply dangerous.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing, and this is kind of a catch-22 and probably the only problem with Cops, is the cops had the final say on the editing. And here's the thing, though. On the one hand, it's like, okay, that means that the cops are being shady, they can hide it from the people. But at the same time, how else are you going to get the cops to agree to let you tape them?
True.
So that's one of those unfortunate compromises that sometimes you have to make with somebody in order to get them permission to do things. Like sometimes, like when you interview certain people, they might say, look, I'm willing to talk, but these topics I won't touch. Or sometimes when you're interviewing somebody, something will be said and you're like, hey, I really would like you to cut that out. You might not want to do it, but 9 times out of 10, if you respect that person's wishes, then that person can recommend you to other famous people that they know and get you more interviews.
Yes, yes.
Because people are willing to work with people where they feel comfortable. I feel comfortable, safe, protected. So even though it is kind of bullshit a little bit because, you know, something fucked up happens, we should be able to see it.
True.
At the same time, I get from a business standpoint why they agreed to that.
Yeah, I understand that too.
They had to have a show. We needed the content. You need the cops' permission. So if this is a way to get the cops' permission, I'll bite the bullet on this.
Yeah.
you know. And to their credit, they always stuck to their word.
That's true, they did.
So I can't fault the production people for that.
Yeah, very true.
Right. And anyway, you can't fault the cops for that because nobody wants to be seen in a negative light. They always try to edit stuff out.
True.
Very few people show who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, and here's the thing, it's not easy to do.
No.
Take it from me. It took a long time for me to be an open book about my life. I wasn't always an open book. There was a lot of shit where I was like not comfortable talking about things. And when I did talk about things I wasn't comfortable with, it fucked with me. True. So, yeah, I'm just saying, I can get that. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's right. I just understand.
Yes.
And the reason it's deeply dangerous is because if there are bad police officers out there, we do need to know about it. That's the key thing. We do need to know.
Very true.
It's important to know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need to have a happy middle ground because police officers aren't all good,
mm-hmm.
but they're not all bad either. You need to show the ones who are good deserve to be exemplified, and the people who are bad deserve to be condemned.
Yes.
So show both. The success of this new kind of television relied on a very old obsession. People love cop shows and movies.
Yes, they did.
Like Dragnet,
mm-hmm.
Kojak, Columbo. My grandma, God rest her, on my mother's side,
mm-hmm.
Zack's met her,
mm-hmm.
loved Columbo.
Really?
Loved Columbo.
Okay.
Big Columbo fan. Law and Order.
Mm-hmm.
Never understood that show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get the hype. It is literally the same fucking show. It's like, show starts at 9 o'clock. They catch the guy at 9:09.
Mm-hmm.
Drag his name through the mud through the whole fucking show. It's about 9:45. Oh crap, he didn't do it. 9:56. We caught the guy who did it. The brief conversation. Bum bum dun 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 dun. We just saw a guy get dragged through the mud. And you know how I know he didn't do it?
Mm-hmm.
They caught it 9 minutes into the fucking show. Otherwise, it's a pretty short fucking show if he did it. And then, of course, there was Lethal Weapon.
Yep.
I don't know. Were you a fan of Lethal Weapon?
Oh, I love the Lethal Weapons. Who didn't like the Lethal Weapons? I love the Lethal Weapon movies. They were good movies. They were. I like the Lethal Weapons.
Yeah, I saw Lethal Weapon. The funny thing is, for the longest time with Lethal Weapon,
mm-hmm.
I only saw the fourth one.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw the other three until way later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finally did, I was like, oh my god, these are fucking good.
Yeah, they are good.
Like, I had to be older to appreciate them. Mm-hmm. Like, when I was a kid, I would always see them in the Blockbuster in my town. Lethal Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon 2, Lethal Weapon 3. But I was like, it just didn't seem appealing to me at the time.
Yeah, they were good movies back when Mel Gibson before became Rick, but that's not the point.
Yeah. Mel Gibson was great in that.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny Glover was good too.
Yeah, he was.
That's where the catchphrase is like, I'm too old for this shit.
I'm too old for this shit.
Of course, there was Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy did great with that.
Mm-hmm.
Tango and Cash, that was my favorite. Actually, one of the movies that made me think about being a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I was in first grade, I won a Student of the Month for the whole school.
Mm-hmm.
And I got nominated. And I won. So they ask you, like, different things about you. And they ask you what you want to be when you grow up. Now, I'm in first grade. Okay? I'm a young child in first grade.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about being a cop. That was the first time anybody ever asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And that was the first, like, kid dream that I had. I want to be a policeman. But I wanted to be a cop like them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guys in the movies.
Yeah.
I didn't realize till later, you don't get to do a lot of that stuff.
Mm-mm.
And as I got older, I thank God every day I didn't become a cop.
Yep, same here.
And here's the thing. That's not a disrespect to law enforcement at all. I'm not hating on cops. I'm just saying it's such a thankless job
mm-hmm.
that I could not bring myself to put my life on the line and not have someone appreciate it.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
That's why I respect cops so much, because despite all the negative press, despite all the shit they get, the good ones, and notice I said the good ones, still go out there and do that job, even though they get placed in the same category a lot of times as the bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I respect cops so much, because they really do put their lives on the line, and there's a lot of people who still don't appreciate it.
Very true, sir.
So, but that was my first like kid dream, was to be a policeman. Mm. Throughout the 80s, shows with actors playing cops were some of the most popular on television. but it never showed what cops really do or actually go through. Mm-hmm. Thus why it became a dream job.
Yeah.
Once I found out what they actually went through, the dream died.
Yep. That
vice that Tubbs and Crockett were fighting in Miami, it looked nothing like the new reality police were facing.
True.
And of course, we're talking about Miami Vice. Mm-hmm. That reality was the war on drugs. That's a victory for America right there. The war
absolutely.
On drugs.
War on drugs. Remember the DARE program? Boy, that was a fucking joke.
So yeah, there were narcotics violations, robberies, and sexual assaults were up 10.5% during this time period. Crack cocaine use leads President Reagan, Ronald Reagan, to double down on the so-called war on drugs. His exact words, and I quote, "Drugs are menacing our society. They're threatening our values and undercutting our institutions. They're killing our children. So why don't you join us in this great new national crusade?"
Shitty crusade.
Yeah. Zach?
Yes?
You want to talk about what you were supposed to crock of shit?
This is a crock of shit because everybody knows if we want to keep drugs out of this country, we can, but we don't. And Nancy Reagan's bullshit song, just say no. Yeah, go piss up a fucking rope.
Yeah. First of all, here's what I'm going to say. All right. Drugs are menacing our society. I can see that a little bit with the hardcore shit.
Yes.
Like, pot is not menacing anybody, but the other ones, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. They're threatening our values. What values exactly?
Exactly.
This thing I never understood talking about our values. Does anybody want to explain what our values are?
Do you have any values?
No, not really. Like,
me either.
I'm just like, you know.
Yeah.
You want to know what my values are?
What?
Don't be a dick. That's your value right there. I don't care. It's like when people talk about religion. Like, Vinny, why do you believe? What do you think God's message is? Just don't be a dick. That's all God really wants you to do is be a nice person. That's it. All the other crap that they say, don't do this, don't do that, whatever, but that. Just follow the 10 Commandments and don't be a dick. And even on the 10 Commandments, one you really need to follow.
Thou shalt not kill.
That's really the only one. The other ones are just fucking there.
Do not commit adultery. Okay? Thou not steal. Well, I fall in that category.
Like, what? Really? If thou shalt not steal was a serious commandment, baseball would be boring. Undercutting our institutions. Okay, which institutions are they undercutting exactly?
County jails.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, they want to send a drug offender to a jail. It's like, no, send his ass to rehab. Or they keep on offending. It's like, okay, you're going to keep on getting thrown in jail. Here's a bit of advice. Don't get caught. Or don't do the hardcore shit. Also a piece. And also another thing, if you are arrested and you're not doing anything wrong, it's like, okay, here you go. I do.
Now, okay, so, and then they're killing our children. Okay, first of all, I don't know which children you're referring to, but most of the time when we're seeing people with drugs getting caught and arrested and shit, it's more adults than kids. I'm not seeing a whole lot of kids. Yeah, they're killing our children. They're also killing adults.
Yes, they are.
So you're basically saying we need to stop these drugs from killing our children, but the adults, leave them alone. Yep. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah.
That kind of goes with the value, I would have to say. I don't hate Ronald Reagan, but I'm going to say, for a Republican president, that's not very Christian to just ignore the adults.
Very true.
And also, this is another thing I want to say about this. It becomes an ongoing theme, not with this show, but with life and with laws over the years. Anytime a politician wants to attack something that is goddamn ridiculous and is none of their business to attack, or wants to make a statement, they always do the same fucking thing. They weaponize children. Always. Why do we need to make pot illegal? For the children. Why do we need to stop media violence? For the children. Why do we need to take prayer out of school? For the children. It's always the children.
It's always the children.
That's how they try to be. We're doing this for the children.
Now it's called a moment of silence.
Yeah, the children. The children's what we're doing this for. The children need our help. Let us take care of the children, because apparently you parents are too weak to do so. Which isn't entirely true, because a lot of y'all suck as parents. I'm going to be honest.
Very true.
There are some parents out there who are great, but a lot of you guys, you should have just kept wearing condoms. Stick on the pill. Pull out. I know just because you want to have a kid doesn't mean you should.
Very true.
A lot of y'all really shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't.
God help us all.
Yep.
And as drug-filled violent crime rises, TV shows glamorizing police work start to lose their luster. So they decide to go the reality route.
Yes.
That's when we meet the two men who would help change TV forever. Yeah. John Langley and Malcolm Barber. Now, they had a documentary before Cops was a thing. This was the inspiration for Cops. They had a documentary called Cocaine Blues.
Cocaine Blues.
Early one morning while making the rounds, I took a shot of cocaine and I shot my woman down. I laid my head and I went to bed. I stuck that loving 44 beneath my head. Did I mess that up?
I think we both did. That's a fantastic Johnny Cash song.
I know that lyric goes somewhere. I might have mixed it up.
Wait a minute. Damn it. If you say take a shot of cocaine, I was like, what else? You put it in a shot glass? I was like thinking, just go with the flow. Shut up.
It's Johnny Cash.
It's Johnny Cash.
We don't question Johnny Cash.
We don't take Johnny Cash.
So they soon land a job bringing its realism to television, because Cocaine Blues showed them doing a documentary on police and tracking down cocaine, because again, this is the war on drugs. Yep. So that was a big part of it.
Yes.
Now, before working on Cops, there was Hank Barr. He was the sound recordist for the show. He was the sound engineer for the show. Now, before that time, he teams up with Langley on a gritty, unscripted television special starring Geraldo Rivera, who we remember from the Trashy Talk Show, and the Al Capone safe that didn't have shit inside of it. So, this is pretty much his redemption right here, I think. It was a 2-hour special with inserts of taped drug raids. Now, while working on the special, John Langley's crew stumbles onto something that will change television. Halfway through shooting, Geraldo has to leave. Apparently he had another gig or something, or he couldn't stick around the whole time. So, in order to finish the show, the taping, Hank mic'd up the guy who keys the door of where they were going to raid. Like, whoever's going to open the door. And have them talk to everybody. He talks to everybody through what's happening. So the guy now that does the keying of the door, not only is responsible for busting open the door, but now is narrating this whole fucking thing. So for the next few hours, they filmed all these drug raids with the officers narrating. And that's how Cops was born.
That's how Cops was born.
Langley shops it around to what are then the only networks. Now remember, for a period of time, there was only the big three. ABC, CBS, NBC. Those are the top three.
Yep.
Those are the only three that exist. But they all turn him down. Network TV isn't ready to buy the realism he's trying to sell.
True.
Now, because back then, reality TV wasn't a thing yet. So it wasn't like, this is something quick that everybody wants. Hell, the real world hadn't even shown up yet.
Nope.
Which we talked about last week. So they weren't ready for reality TV yet. Nope. Today, reality TV's all over the place. But back then, nah. They wanted more.
Yes, they did. Now,
John was not only struggling to pitch the show, he was also struggling in life. He was actually living out of his car. So he was broke. This motherfucker broke. Right? But Langley's luck is about to change. In 1988, there was a Writers Guild strike.
Yeah.
Which halted production on the scripted shows. So suddenly, a show that doesn't use script writers looks attractive to TV executives. And now there's a new network in town, which we talked about before as well, for the fledgling Fox. A risky concept with a low budget is irresistible. So now you got a writer's strike, and that's really where reality TV got its strength. Because there was another writer's strike later on in the 2000s. That's when reality TV came in. Because the networks still needed content to put out. And they didn't have any because the writers weren't writing shit. So what do? Go to reality TV. And not only that, but you also had the Fox network, which again this is Fox in its infancy.
Mm-hmm. The beginning of Fox.
Yeah, it's not up there yet. This is a brand new network that's getting on its feet. So, and as we mentioned before, Fox was grabbing content wherever they could. Fox didn't have the luxury to be picky. We need shit to put on. So when Cops showed up, it was like, oh, they don't want it? I'll take it. We can put something on here. They were hungry for content. And they were the new young network. So they wanted to embrace that newness with gritty, urban, young TV and production that you can't see anywhere else.
True.
Fox wanted to make itself different, and Cops was a way to make it different. When Cops finally makes it to air on March 11th, 1989, it delivers can't-look-away realism rarely seen on the small screen. Like, literally, they had it set up to where I have no idea what this is, but I can't turn away. Even if you wanted to watch something else, you watched at least a couple minutes. Mm-hmm. Even if you might eventually change the channel on Cops, but you didn't change it right away.
Nope.
But I'm at least give this a couple of minutes, or at least wait till a commercial before I finally shut it off. If you want to go somewhere else, that is. The format for Cops is simple. Each episode tracks 3 stories with police kicking ass off the top. That's the key thing. The first story was always them, pulling somebody out of the car, get on the ground, or chasing somebody and tackling them, subduing them. That was always the first story. It had to be something like that to make you go, oh shit. Then what producers see as comic relief in the middle. So then it's like, that's when they open the door, and the second story is them going around like what you doing in my trailer? You're under arrest. I didn't do shit. What's that over there? That's my Gold Ball medicated powder. Mind your own fucking business. That looks like cocaine. It's for my nuts. Leave me alone. What's that plant over there? Those are my... Is it?
For my glaucoma.
Bubba, how do we pronounce that again? What? Azalea? What kind of Arabian shit is that? Azalea. Those are my azaleas. We don't need to be messing with that. That kind of shit. And then a finale shows police serving and protecting.
Yes.
Like the ones they showed, they went into this house and they found out they didn't have any groceries. Mm-hmm. So the kids hadn't eaten in a few days. So rather than take the kids into protective custody and separate them from the parents, for that episode, it's like, you know what? They take the kids shopping, buy them groceries, bring them back to the house. The family has something to eat. You know what? We're not going to separate this family. Let's give them some food.
Yes.
And that was the format of the show. Because that's what you want to see. You want to see the action, because it's a TV show. So here's your action. Here's a little something to make you laugh, because it's always funny when you see stupid people getting arrested, whether it's in the trailer park or the ghetto. Either way, it's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Because there's always some goofy person in every single one. And then the third one, of course, is the, cops doing good for the community.
Yes.
Which is true.
Yes.
Now, does that happen all the time buying groceries? Probably not.
No.
Probably not. But it does show that the cops do good for the community. And you hear stories, and I've heard stories about that. Like a guy, like one time a cop pulled this guy over, and because his kid wasn't in a car seat, and it's one of those things where when your kid is a certain age, they have to be in a car seat. So he's asking him questions and everything else, and he goes, "How come your kid doesn't have a car seat?" And he said, "Well, I haven't had the money for a car seat." He goes, "Why not?" He said, "I pay so much money in child support, and I'm trying to go to work, hold down a job, everything. I just can't. I haven't had the budget for a car seat. I'm just trying to get my daughter home." So the cop said, "Follow me." So he follows him, takes him, and they pull into this shopping mall. There's a Babies R Us. Cop goes into the Babies R Us, buys a car seat, comes out, gives the car seat to the kid, and goes, "This is yours. It's for your daughter."
Oh, okay.
Then they say, "Make sure she's strapped in." You don't have a good day, sir. He's like, how much do I owe you for? He goes, it's on me. Now, they created their audience as it aired on Saturday night, with the ratings going through the ceiling, despite Saturday being the worst night to air new episodes of anything. Their Q rating was above The Tonight Show.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Especially in the Carson heyday. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Then you got Carson, never mind the fact that Leno's around the pike eventually. Mm-hmm. Like, they beat The Tonight Show.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Very big deal.
And again, they were getting high ratings on a Saturday. That's almost impossible, period, because nobody airs new episodes of anything on a Saturday.
Nope.
Why? Because on Saturday, everybody's out doing shit. Now, today, probably not. No. But in the 90s, people went outside on the weekends.
Yes, they did.
There was a lot of TV watching on the weekends. Unless it was like late night, like Saturday Night Live. You tune in for something like that. You know, or on Sunday, people didn't really watch a lot of TV until football. Mm-hmm. That's why they designated certain things for certain days. So that way it's like, hey, Sunday night was football. Mm-hmm. Football all day. Yep. Sunday was football. You had your jerseys, your friends came over, you had beer, you had soda, you had whatever. Watch games.
Yes, watch the games.
You know, Saturday was Saturday Night Live. Mm-hmm. And it all depended on who was the host that day. Mm-hmm. And if it was somebody really popular, you were like, oh shit, we gotta see this. So they made it must see. But in general, you do not air new episodes of TV shows because for the rest of the day, you're out doing shit. You're partying. Mm-hmm. You know? So the fact that Cops was able to like, oh, I gotta see Cops, man. You gotta be kidding me, man. I gotta see this. Like, that's a big deal.
Very big deal.
What most people loved about Cops was the cameras weren't on the dashboard or on their bodies. Mm-hmm. It was held by cameramen showing all the action. Yes. That's what made it great. It's not like there was a camera on the dashboard and you're just looking at the guy's face the whole time. Mm-hmm. Or a body cam, so you got to see the guy running, but you don't get to see everything. They have a cameraman, so you see the guy running. You see the cop running behind the guy. Mm-hmm. You clearly see the cop tackle that guy to the goddamn ground. You see the guns drawn, everything. You're getting all the action. The cops just did what they normally do, and the camera captured it. Yes. So this is very similar to what they did with the real world. They just turned the camera on, and shit happened.
Yeah, let it fly.
Yeah, they didn't script nothing.
Nope.
They didn't stage nothing.
Nope. They
just turned the camera on and filmed.
Very true.
And again, as I mentioned last week, that's what reality TV should be. Mm-hmm. It happens, and you record it.
Yes, you do.
Because the more you stage and plan it out, the less appealing the reality TV is. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you got to set certain things. I'm aware of that. But in general, you want it to feel real. You don't want things to feel forced. Like, oh, we have to tackle this guy because we need a badass moment on camera. No, tackle the guy because he's running from you and resisting. John's vision for Cops was to show the true nature of what policing is. But it turns out John Langley didn't control what aspect of policing the audience got to see. The cops did. Because no department wants something to look at. To me, it's no different than if someone was filming you for a show and you said something accidental or inappropriate that was out of context, you'd be like, cut that out, please. Mm-hmm. You want control of that because otherwise people will portray you however they want. And they might say something you took and you might take it out of context and think you're somebody that you're not. Mm. Now, the whole ecosystem of policing is getting this sort of washed sort of look, this fairy tale version. Mm. But as the 90s roll on, it's painfully clear that for many, it's a fairy tale without a happily ever after. Because we do find out that even though, as we mentioned before, there are a lot of good cops in the world, there are some bad ones.
There are some bad ones.
And they eventually get caught.
Yes, they do.
In the early 90s, Cops goes international, with the show's theme song becoming a worldwide hit.
Yep.
Which we said before. Mm-hmm. You know, it's so deep in the culture, it inspires the 3-part trilogy film Bad Boys, mm-hmm. starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Mm-hmm. You know, we ride together, we die together, Bad Boys for life. That whole thing became inspired by that theme song and that show. And Will Smith and Martin Lawrence and the chemistry they had.
Those two are great.
Yeah. Now, The chart-topping Grammy-winning tune is burned into the popular consciousness, but the song also hints at the manipulation tactics of the show it introduces. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was saying before about, police don't give me no break. That was subliminal.
Yeah.
Basically saying the cops don't give us warnings. They give us beatings, what they're trying to say. The song also helps Cops become a pop culture phenomenon, inspiring SNL skits and even a parody on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And of course, South Park we mentioned before.
Yes.
But Cops' winning formula couldn't work without the active participation of the people with the most to lose.
True.
Every person that appeared on the show, just about, signed a release.
Yes.
They were so excited to be on Cops, they forgot the crime they were committing that got them on the show. Now, again, the release form is, this is not an omission of guilt. A release form, for those who've never done reality TV or documentaries or anything like that, this is basically how it works. And Zach knows this because he had to sign one to be on my documentary. Mm-hmm. The release form basically states, it's a general statement that basically says, we have permission to use your likeness on the show. Mm-hmm. So, for example, for Zach to appear in my documentary and have the two shining moments that he had. One was, of course, conducting the concerto of singing me happy birthday. And the other was trying to rip the capsule out of my hand, which is a reel you can find on social media. It's on the Boochcast Instagram page. And hopefully by the time this video comes out, it'll be on the Facebook page as well. Mm-hmm. And you can check it out there.
Oh, God.
So, but in order for those things to be in there, Zach had to sign a release.
Yes.
If he didn't sign a release, we couldn't air that. Or if we did air it, we'd have to blur his face. Which I know some of you are out there going, I wish he had signed the release. I didn't need to see that. But no, that's a key thing. He had to sign a release. Everybody that ever appeared in my documentary, Booch in the Car, all of them signed a release. Mm-hmm. Desmond, Elvis, John, Jerry, Larry Wax, Bob Whitfield, all of them signed release forms to give their permission to be used in the documentary. It was the cameraman's job to get the waiver signed. And they would get their numbers and follow up with them to get it signed so they could be sober. So that was a key thing. Because a lot of these times, these guys are drugged up, they're wasted. So you can't have them sign the release form right then and there. Because then you can be sued. Mm-hmm. Because they weren't in their right state of mind. So what they would do is get their phone numbers and then in a day or two, call them up and say, hey, I need to come down to meet with you to sign this release form so we can use the footage on the show. Mm-hmm. And then he would drive down to where they were, and while they're clean, sober, in their right state of mind, sign the forms.
Sign the form.
Now, the conversations for the most part were civilized, and it would end with a handshake and a can of Coca-Cola. Mm. Especially because most times when people bring you into your house, at least in the 90s, I can't speak for today, but most people are hospitable and offer a beverage. That's like a customary thing. Yes. Like, would you like something to drink, sir? And they either say yes or no. Being hospitable. Now, this was before social media. Mm-hmm. So fame was exclusive to just TV. Mm-hmm. That's why the goal back in the day was, the Carson rite of passage that I mentioned before. Because that was TV. Mm-hmm. If you had a TV deal, you made it.
Yes, you did.
You can just get on TV. Because TV can lead to film. Everything else that you're doing. TV was big. It was the big thing to be on TV. It's like, look, Mom, on TV. It was a big deal. And people loved the opportunity to get 5 minutes of fame on Cops. Mm-hmm. They really did.
Yeah, they did.
But was this just people looking for their chance to get on television, no matter what the cost? Or was there more to it? That's the question. Now, some people said no to signing the release. Like, fuck you, I ain't giving you my permission. Those people had their faces blurred out. So if you were ever watching Cops, and as a kid, this always confused me. Because there were some episodes of Cops where people had their faces blurred out. Mm-hmm. And other times they didn't. So I'm like, why would they do that? And it wasn't until that I saw this episode that I realized the reason some episodes had faces blurred out was because those were the people that refused to sign the release. Mm-hmm. So they still aired the show, but they had to blur them out.
Yes.
That's how you work around using this great footage that you captured. Now, the show's groundbreaking style also wins over the TV industry. In the early 90s, Cops is nominated 4 times for an Emmy.
Yes.
And wins Best Reality-Based Program at the 1993 American Television Awards. So Cops is a hit.
Yes, it is.
People love the fact that this is gritty, this is real, this is what police work is really all about.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't like those guys you see in Tango and Cash and Lethal Weapon where they're walking in and they're coming in jeans and tank tops and they're fighting everybody, hand-to-hand combat, very little gun shooting and all that. It's like, nope. This is what the real life is.
Yep.
In that car patrolling, every now and then you catch some action. Most of the time you're in donut shops and fucking sitting on the highway with a clock thing, waiting for somebody to go over the speed limit.
Yep.
That's mostly a cop's life.
Pretty much.
That's why you see those jokes in movies where you see cops behind a desk, and then there's a crime like, finally, some action.
Harold and Kumar.
Yeah, because that's what they're waiting for.
Yeah.
Every cop is waiting for that moment where, finally, we get to take down somebody. Because when you dream about being a police officer, that's what you're thinking about. Going out on patrol, bringing criminals to justice, getting to have a gun. Those were the appealing things about cops.
Yep.
I get to carry a gun? Shit.
Yay.
But then, of course, as you mature and you get into the profession, you realize, okay, even though I get to use this gun, I'm not supposed to.
Yes.
Unless it's a last resort.
Very last resort.
And there are some people who, as they become cops, grow out of that obsession.
Yes.
Unfortunately, others don't.
No, they do not.
Others still get to go, look at me, I'm a cowboy! And those are the ones that ended up on the internet.
Pretty much.
Unfortunately. Now, many people over the years asked if any of it was staged.
And it wasn't staged.
No, everything on the show was real.
But the cameraman, no, this was real.
Now, because it's on TV, that is a legitimate question to ask. Because, especially today with reality TV being staged a lot.
And there's too many of them.
Yes. So, but no, everything on the show was real.
Yes.
Now, they were warned by the FCC that if they say it's real and it's not, they can get in serious trouble.
Yes.
So that's why wrestling is allowed to kayfabe. The rest of TV is not.
No.
If these things are staged, you need to let people know these are staged events.
Yes.
They weren't.
No, they were not.
Because if they found out later that it was staged, cops would have gotten serious fucking trouble.
Very true.
Very serious trouble. There's legal shit behind that. If it happened in front of the lens, you saw it on TV. If the local police department gave their okay, of course.
Yeah.
To help make sure they did, the show's producers, Barbara and Langley, were willing to filter reality to help their subjects look their best. So what you saw was real, but they edited it differently. That's the difference. Because the show was a partnership. As people don't understand, they weren't casting people to be on the show. This is like the real world where they were casting people. It was a partnership between law enforcement and the network.
Very true.
And the creators. They would partner up with police officers and they had editorial control over the show. If they felt something would portray the agency in a negative way, they had the right to say, don't put that in there.
Put that in there.
Don't put this on TV.
No.
And like I said, they had to have that partnership in order to have the show. So like I said, sometimes it's that give and take that you gotta make. Sometimes when you're making a deal with somebody, in order to get the deal done, sometimes you gotta swallow your pride a little bit.
Yes, you do.
And Barbara and Langley, of course, had to go along with that in order to have access to these police agencies. The show was pro-police. But working alongside police all day can blur the line between crew and cop. One time, they chase this guy. And the cops and cameraman go one way, and the boom mic guy goes the other way. And sees him coming. And he trips him up and helps the cops.
Supposed to do that.
Yes, that's a no-no. But he quickly gets out of the show for fear of losing his job. Thankfully, he didn't.
Thankfully, he didn't.
And if you look real closely, you can see him for a split second. You see him for a split second. But again, as we mentioned before, with the real world, When you are documenting a documentary, if you are a cameraman, if you are a boom mic, if you are a tech person, you are not allowed to interfere with what is being filmed. That's the problem. Like a lot of times we get tapped going, why didn't they just help them? They're not allowed to.
They're not allowed to.
You can lose your job because you're fucking with the reality.
You are.
Again, when I was eating the car, I did a partnership with the School of Humans to make that documentary.
Yes.
Their job was to stay in the background. Now, obviously, when I'm eating the car, they would direct me in the sense that, hey, hold the capsule like this so we can see it going in, or do something a certain way. But as far as what I said and when we did the live shows, they just filmed.
They did.
That's all they were required to do.
Yep.
I went out there and did my Eat a Car show on my terms. They weren't allowed to come up and go, hey, you can't say that. Nope. I say it, I say it. So that was how it went. Now, they might tell me later, you probably shouldn't have said that in your speech, which never happened because I'm very careful about what I say in front of people.
You are. Like somebody who we know.
Yeah. But I'm just making a point. I'm using that as a point.
I know, I'm just
the documentary, like, you're not allowed to interfere. Now, this version of reality seen on Cops turned Barbara and Langley's low-budget series into a lucrative global brand. But while the Cops camera crews capture the law enforcement-approved version of policing, a much uglier glimpse of police at work is caught on a camera the Cops didn't control.
What we talked about last week with Rodney King.
Yes. He comes up a lot, ladies and gentlemen. This was a big moment in the 90s.
It was a big part of the 90s. I remember it, and I watched it. I was like, okay. And then like in the Today's World, I think they even changed it. But your guys out and just do one thing, being to let us go. Take your Taser guys like, dude, if you don't stop, my Taser's gonna hurt. Falls like a bag of bricks. Mm-hmm. Walmart in Florida, holding a knife,
crazy
and
bitch.
a rock. Yeah. I'm good. I was like, okay, I give up. Like Jar Jar, I give up. Doop, 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 doop. I don't want to get tased, shot, or pepper sprayed. I'm good.
Yeah. Portraying patrol officers as heroes makes Cops a ratings hit in the early 90s. Linda Canada may be the face of pro-cop propaganda, but not everyone is buying the feel-good story that Cops is selling.
True.
And of course, Linda Canada was like a female cop that was shown doing all this heroic shit. That was cool. Because slave patrol, fire hoses, violence, police officers' lives have been far above the lives of everyday people in ways that no other professional society gets treated. Now, basically what they're saying is this. Back in the day, before police officers were the way they are today, when the formation of police was made, they were originally slave patrol. And this is during the days of slavery. Police officers were created to make sure slaves didn't escape.
True.
That was the foundation. Now, obviously, it changed over time. And of course, people remember, the fire hoses during the civil rights, when cops would turn hoses on people. And obviously the violence, the police brutality, even back then. So obviously, there are histories of cops doing negative things and not having all the people's best interest at heart. That is a part of history. I do not deny it.
Nope. I'm
acknowledging it right now.
Yep.
But there was one thing, and this is a guy that Zach had a major problem with in the documentary.
This fucker.
He was mentioning all this, but then he said here, police officers' lives put far above the lives of everyday people in ways that no other profession or society gets treated. Now, before I go anywhere, I acknowledge again, there were bad cops that did bad things. A lot of them did not get punished for it, and they should have been. So I've already acknowledged that. That's off the table. That being said, my response to the guy who said, and I'll read it one more time, police officers' lives have been put far above the lives of everyday people in ways that no other profession or society gets treated. To which I reply, no shit, motherfucker!
No, yeah, true.
Why do you think? Because they're the ones putting their lives on the line.
True.
Other than a small handful of professions, there's not many that put their lives on the line. Let's see, who else? put their lives on the line. I'll give them that.
Mm-hmm.
Doctors, because they risk, diseases when they're in the operating room. If somebody has a fatal disease, they risk disease as well. Athletes put their lives on the line. Pro wrestlers put their bodies on the line. Football, battle, athletes, they do. The military, I don't know if that, they're not, although I don't consider them everyday people, because they're a step above as well. But the military, they put their lives on the line, defending freedom.
True.
But the everyday people with everyday normal jobs aren't really putting their lives on the line when they go to work. Okay? If you work in retail, you're not putting your life on the line when you go to work.
When you wash dishes, you're not putting your life on the line either.
Okay? When you work in, construction workers, maybe.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're doing.
True.
If you're working on one of those scaffold things, yeah, you're probably putting your body on the line. But if you're in a bulldozer truck, you ain't putting your body on the line. Okay? Like, some people do a job, but cops actually are out there fighting criminals who are armed and dangerous. When they go into those drug raids, you think people who have a fuck ton of drugs in their house don't have guns too?
They got guns as well.
They fucking do.
Yes, they do.
They're going after people who do bad things. So yes, one of the things people talk about cops is that they're grossly underpaid.
Really underpaid.
That's why so many of them are easily corrupted. Because they don't make a lot of money. There's not a lot of money in law enforcement.
None at
there
all.
really isn't.
Nope.
So, yeah, their lives are going to be put above people. The level of fucking arrogance that anyone thinks they have, to think that a police officer's life isn't going to be put above yours. Your life is not being put on the line when you go to work. I'm sorry. You're not as valuable as a cop.
No, not even close.
I'm sorry. You're not. And that's including myself.
Yep.
I'm including myself. I don't have a job where I put my life on the line. I don't. Although, with Will Smith slapping Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle getting tackled, maybe I might have to put myself in that category eventually. But, so far, no one's tried to rush the stage while I'm up there. I think because they know better, but I don't know. But either way, I'm sorry. Cops do deserve respect.
Do.
At least the good ones do.
Very true, sir.
But here's the thing. Show respect until you find out whether they're good or bad, is my advice to you.
Yes.
So, Zach, do you want to say what you had to say about that guy before we move on?
Dude, just shut up. Not all cops are bad, and yeah, you're a left-wing moron. Yeah, all you guys do is target black people in that show. It's like, no, white people got arrested too. Trust me. They did. Just, everybody got arrested. Every type of race got arrested. I've seen it all before.
You watched a lot of episodes, right? So
I watched a couple episodes. I did.
Yeah.
I did.
So I'm saying, anybody that's watched Cops, they know. We've seen, like I said, they've been in the trailer park, they've been to the ghetto.
Yeah.
They've been to El Casas.
Yeah, Casas, and the amount of stupidity in those people are like, that's not mine. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, right. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, when he said amount of stupidity in people, he means people on cops who get arrested. They're not directed towards anything.
No.
So when people go like, oh, those people? Yeah, the ones who got arrested on cops. You ain't watching the show?
Mm-hmm.
But in the early 90s, advances in personal video cameras will open the door for citizens to expose hidden societal injustices. And one of the biggest stories of the decade is captured on this home recording, and of course, we talked about earlier, Rodney King. On April 29th, 1992, the 4 officers charged in Rodney King's beating were in fact found not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
LA explodes in the aftermath. As crowds build on the corner in downtown LA, people gather nearby but refuse to engage. So the police are there, and they're not engaging with this. Like, that's how bad the publicity was. The one time where they could actually have done something to stop violence and actually probably would have been justified because everybody was going crazy. Even though they're like, yeah, we ain't doing this. I'm not doing this. And in some cases, you can't really blame them. Like, I'd be honest, if I was a cop today and I found out that somebody black was committing a crime, I'd drive the other way. I'd drive the other way. Nope. But Vinny, you need to save that person's life. Yeah, but the publicity I'm going to get for saving that life, I don't want it. I don't want it. The cancel culture would be worse, so it's best enough to let nature take its course. That's why I can never be a cop.
True.
There's no way I could put my life on the line defending and saving somebody and getting resentment for it later. I wouldn't handle that very well.
Yep.
If I help somebody and you're ungrateful for my help, fuck you.
Fuck you.
I can't do that. I'm not that kind of guy. That's why I only help people who ask for my help and really want it and really need it, and I don't hate them.
Yep.
I've had people ask for my help before that were piece of shit human beings, and I'm like, nope, never again.
Never again.
But anyway, when they finally move in, it's too late to stop the rioting. 37 people are dead, more than 1,300 are injured, more than 4,000 are arrested, damage estimate $200 million and rising. Rodney eventually held a press conference and called for peace with his infamous saying, "Can't we all get along?" So if you've heard people, doing parodies of that or jokes of that, or "Can't we all just get along?"
That came from Rodney King.
Yeah. Who just wanted everything to stop.
Yeah, and I don't blame him. If I was Rodney King, okay, we can stop here. I know this sucks, but doing this right here is not. Bing.
That's the point he was trying to make. It's like, look, I get that you're angry. Nobody's more angry about this than me.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee you, there's no part of Rodney King that would have said, look, these cops did me dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Burn down our own city. There were even some older black people that were like, they just wanted the violence to stop.
Yeah.
The White House takes a hard line against the violence, but is indifferent to the police action that provoked it out on the streets. The anger only intensifies. So that right there is a problem. You're condemning the LA riots, but you're not condemning the cops for their brutality.
For true.
That's wrong. See, because you notice with me, I know some of you already commenting below. Did you haterade?
Haterade.
Look, you notice on this show, I've condemned both. Have I not?
Yes, you have.
I'm saying burning down the city of LA was wrong. Cops beating up Rodney King was wrong. All of it's wrong.
All of it's
wrong.
all
wrong. Nobody's right in this scenario.
Nope.
But the White House did a very shitty job. Because now you're making the government look racist. Again, not helping your case. If you're going to condemn one, condemn the other. Or just keep your fucking mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
Which unfortunately the president can't keep his mouth shut in scenarios like this.
No, he can't.
So you should have condemned everybody. Because everybody fucked up here. There was no right. There's no side here that is doing the right thing. The cops beating up Rodney King was wrong.
It was.
The jury not putting those cops in jail was wrong. The city of LA being burned to the ground is wrong. All of it's wrong.
Oh, wrong.
There's nobody doing the right thing here.
No, they weren't.
Except Rodney King saying, "Can't we all get along?" That's about it. And in major cities, voices began calling for diversity, demanding police hire more men and women who actually know what it's like to be black in America. Nowhere is the need for change more keenly felt than in Los Angeles. Now, I can agree with that. I think they should. But here's the catch.
What's the catch?
In order to do that, you have to find people, black people, who want to be cops. How many black people you know want to be in law enforcement?
None.
I don't know any.
Me neither.
I know black cops who are in law enforcement,
Yes.
but I've never met any kid that I grew up with or went to school with or hung out with or was friends with. Not one of them ever said to me, when I grow up, I want to be a cop. None of them.
I never heard that once.
None of them. I never met a black kid that grew up to want to be a cop. Never did. So that's a problem. You can't just say hire somebody. First of all, they have to apply for the job. Okay? There's no police draft. They don't force you to become a police officer. You have to apply for the job. That's like when they say, you need to hire more black people here. You need to get more black people here. We need more black people in here. They gotta want the job.
Very true.
If you don't want the job, we can't hire you.
Well,
That's a key thing.
Mm-hmm.
So my answer to that would be, find me some black people who want to be cops, we'll go through the process. Interview you, train you. If you pass the police academy and you go through the qualifications, congratulations, we will make you an officer.
Very true.
And we'll have you patrol the black neighborhoods. So you can find out who's up to no good and who's just hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can handle the justice. Just make sure you handle the justice, though.
The right way, not the wrong way.
Yes. But I'm saying, don't let somebody get away with a crime that's actually committing a crime.
Yeah.
The new regime recognized that the show Cops, with its positive portrayal of police officers, could play an important role in changing the reputation of the LAPD. So instead of fixing the problem, they rebrand their image. Again.
Not gonna work.
This is stupid. Fix the problem. And that's the worst part. Every time there's a problem, and this is not a problem with police, this is corporations, this is everybody. Whenever there's a problem, they never want to solve it. They just want to sweep it under the rug. That's all they want to do. They want to just sweep it under the carpet. Just sweep it. Sweep it under the carpet. You know, that's why when you would see Officer Barbrady on South Park go, okay, people, move along, nothing to see here. That's what they do. Nothing to see here. We got nothing. It's fine.
It's fine.
I had those problems in retail. We would have problems. And nobody wanted to solve them. Like, can we fix this problem? No. They didn't want to fix the problem. They just wanted me to stop making noise. Be quiet. Fall in line with the bullshit. I wonder why I was so fucking angry at those jobs.
Jeez, I wonder why.
You're more concerned with your image than actually fixing the problem.
True.
You want everyone to think you're great when you're not. You can rebuild your image by fixing the fucking problem.
Fix the problem.
That rebuilds your image way better.
Very true.
But people don't get that because actually fixing the problem requires a lot of work. And nobody wants to work hard anymore. Nope. Or even back then, some people just don't want to put in the work. What's the shortcut that I can take? Shortcuts are for bitches. All right. And for the police officers, appearing on Cops is an opportunity that's too good to pass up. The overwhelming majority of police officers are out there to do the right thing the right way. Help their community and make it a safer place.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Most of these cops, they live in this community. So they like to make a difference in the community and do it the right way. And that is true. There are cops who want to do things the right way. They want to take care of the community. They want to help you. That's why they do the job. They want to be a part of the community and be accepted by the community for what they do. That's what the majority of police officers want.
This is true.
Aside from the bad ones. They represent the force when they are on that show, and most use it as an opportunity to show what their lives are really like. Many people became cops because of the show. That's another thing that made people want to be cops. Because they saw it on TV, saw how cool it was, prefer the real thing over the Hollywood allure.
The Hollywood allure.
And decided to get into it.
Very true.
You know, they saw people making a difference and wanted to do the same. So in a way, the cops having the editing control did do some good. Now, great, like I said, it hides some of the bad stuff, but it did do some good because it made people want to become cops for the right reason. So the good PR is helpful.
Yes.
Because it's allowing us to get more good cops. Which is what we need, right?
Yep.
More good cops.
More good cops.
More cops who want to make a difference. More cops who want to help people. So in a way, if this is slightly biased portrayal gives us more good cops, then there is a benefit. But being part of the team, actually making the show, that was a mixed bag.
Yeah.
It was a dangerous gig. And for Mark, that danger comes from a place he least expects. Now, he gets accidentally shot by a policeman he was working with in Chesapeake, Virginia. Now, here's what happens. They got a radio call about gunfire in the neighborhood. They're coming to the neighborhood, and the headlights swing across this group of young men, and they're just walking down the sidewalk. And looking over their shoulder at them, and the officer approaches the guy who called. And he says he heard gunfire, and he saw those guys had a gun and put it in the trunk of that car. Mm-hmm. Officers open the trunk and see a shotgun. And he lifts the gun up like he's going to look at it, and Mark is standing there with the camera, asking him to check it to make sure it's safe. But before he can get the words out, the cop's finger rolls back on the trigger accidentally, and the gun goes off. Mm. Now, luckily, it wasn't a direct hit. But it gets hit with the shockwave and the fire, and it takes him off his feet. Mm. Even though it wasn't a direct hit to him, the shockwave and everything took him off his feet.
Yeah.
And so it looks like he just shot the fucking cameraman. Mm-hmm. The sound guy loses his mind because he thinks Mark is dead. Mm. But Mark never shut the camera off, so it kept filming the whole thing until it ran out of tape. Mm. So now, again, the gun went off. The cop did not shoot the cameraman. But, again, this is one of those moments where, and I feel like this episode could have did something, and I don't know if it did do this, because I didn't see the actual episode. But I'll tell you this, if I am the guy running cops, and we want to do some editing, you know what I would have put at the end there? A lesson on gun safety. That's how you spin that. You know, holding the gun a proper way. Like, don't put your finger on the trigger when you're pulling a gun out.
Yes.
Put it around this, put it on the bottom area. Or if you're going to slide your hand through, slide it behind the trigger so you don't pull it accidentally. Also, always make sure the safety's on. There's always a safety feature on guns. Mm-hmm. That's why you ever see movies where a guy is shooting the gun, but the gun doesn't shoot. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the guy knocks him out, grabs the gun and goes, "Gotta take the safety cap off." Mm-hmm. Bam! And shoots him in the leg. Mm-hmm. Or like, works better without the safety on. Mm-hmm. This is Gale Weathers signing off. Mm-hmm. The producer, Marie Jordan, came to visit him in the hospital and said it was awesome. They got the whole thing on tape and they would send him a dub. Mm-hmm. Never got it. Mm-hmm. Mark's never aired friendly fire shooting is an example of how cops only presents police in a positive light. In the 90s, police are increasingly seen as the solution to every problem. Now, here's the thing. They're not the solution to every problem.
No, they're not.
9 times out of 10, most problems can be worked out between the two people. As long as you guys can talk things out, you don't need cops. No. You know, you really don't. There are some cases where things get a little out of hand. You don't need to call the police. You can usually solve it amongst yourselves most of the time. It's when things become unreasonable or life-threatening that you need to bring the cops.
Yes.
Like if you try to kick somebody out of your house and the motherfucker won't leave. Cops.
Cops.
That's the best way. But if you tell the guy, get the fuck out of the house, and they get the fuck out of the house, you didn't need the cops for that.
Yep.
He's gone. Now if he comes back, call police.
Call the police.
Okay. The white people that got arrested were treated more comical, while the black or brown people that got arrested were treated like savages.
No, they didn't.
I don't really see that.
I did not see that.
I didn't either.
I see black people run. I see white people run. I see the brown people run. They got tackled just as bad.
Well, I think they were trying to say like they were more calm because they tried to show scenes where like they're more calm with the white people than they are with the black people, and I'm like, that's not entirely true.
No,
that's not. I've seen plenty of ones where white people were unruly and the cops took them down.
Yeah,
and I've seen scenes where they were with black people and they were calm. Mm-hmm. Hell, remember earlier we talked about that family they went and got groceries and food for? Mm-hmm. That was a black family. Mm-hmm. And everything about police officers, and I'm gonna tell this story. I'm not going to mention any names for safety's sake, but I'll tell this story. Regardless of how a cop's personal feelings are, the best cops check their personal feelings at the door.
Yeah, they do.
I'll give you an example. One time, while I was promoting a show, I won't say what show, just a show, any genre of entertainment you could. were using police officers as part of the show. Mm-hmm. We were going to donate a portion of the money from the show to the police officers youth program. And at one point, police were actually helping us promote the show. So we were driving around in a police beat with them. I was in a car driving a cop car. And at some point, I don't know how the conversation got here, but the cop that was in the car was talking about that cop is personally against has an issue with interracial dating. He just doesn't. He's not. And I don't know how we got to that conversation, but he said personally, I don't really believe in that. I don't. That's not my opinion I have. Later on, we get a call. There's a missing child. While we're in the car, so I end up going with him on this beat. Mm. He goes over to and we find out it's a black family. In my head, I'm thinking, oh boy, how's this gonna go? It goes very well. They have a conversation. They get information on the kid. He goes, hold on, we'll be right back. So we go driving around the neighborhood. We find the kid. Mm. He says, how you doing? He goes, hey there, little buddy. How you doing? He's like, good. He goes, you supposed to be out here by yourself? And he said, no. I'm like, well, your mom's worried sick about you. Am I in trouble? He's like, no, you're not. We just want to take you back to your mom, okay? He goes, okay. He goes, come on, get in the car. Come on, get in the car. You're going to be okay. So he puts him in the car. No handcuffs, no nothing. Just gets him in the car. And we take the kid back to his mom. Mm. Opens the door, lets the kid out. And the mom's just so happy to see her kid, he doesn't even get punished. And he's like, thank you so much. He goes, you're welcome, ma'am. Just doing my job on the day's work, that kind of thing. And we get back in the car and we go back to promote the show. Mm. So even though he had an opinion on interracial relationships, it did not stand in the way of the fact there was somebody in need of help. The fact the person was black didn't matter to him. It mattered to serve and protect my community. So yeah, he said he checked his personal feelings at the door and helped find that mom's lost kid. Yeah. And it was an emotional moment. I love seeing it. Everybody got treated comically or like savages. It depended on how you behaved at the time.
Very true, sir.
That's what it was. Scientific studies of the show Cops would later prove inherent racism. Mm-hmm. There are white people selling drugs in their gated communities, but they weren't overtly doing it like hookers and crack dealers on the street. Wall Street guys never got handcuffed for doing cocaine. Mm-hmm. Well, that's because they did them in places where either A, they didn't get caught, or B, they had enough money to make people look the other way.
True.
Hell, I remember Cat Williams would say there was sometimes he would be doing Hollywood deals and they'd be doing the cocaine right in front of you. Mm-hmm. Right? That's why that joke was like, do you know that I can see you? It's on your nose. What the? Mm-hmm. It's like, at least when other people in Hollywood do drugs, they at least excuse themselves, go to the bathroom and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've seen that, and it's true. There are people in gated communities selling drugs. They're just not on the street corner. Black people do it on the street corner a lot.
Yeah.
They're the ones out there going, hey man, yo, smoke, man? Smoke? And most of the time you say no, that's it. Hell, I've seen places where I've seen black people sell drugs like in an apartment building. Mm-hmm. They're not always on the street corner. And like I said before, I have had sex with hookers who would smoke crack in my car. On the rare moments that happened, I would take the car to the car wash next day. Mm-hmm. My biggest fear is getting pulled over by the cops and they find a little crystal in like one of the floor mats or something. They're like, is that yours? No. Sure, it's not yours.
No, it's not yours. Katie Booch get caught with a possession of crack cocaine. I will laugh my ass off to the end of the day.
Yeah. Because when people think crack cocaine, they think Vinny Bucci. Oh, yeah. I'm just a whore for the crack, aren't I?
The crack-headed Booch.
Yeah. Me, a crackhead. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
That'll be the day. You gotta factor that in as well. That's the reason why black people get arrested for drugs more often than white people. Most white people aren't selling them out in public where everybody can see them. So that is a factor as well.
That's very true.
Now, the police don't get paid for being on Cops. Bear that in mind. All they get is exposure for their department and show who they are and what they really do. But the cops don't get paid for the show. Although, to quote a famous actor in one of his best movies, be a lot cooler if you did.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just saying, I think they should have been. Come on. We've already mentioned how underpaid they are.
That's true.
Throw the guys a couple of bucks. Put a little... Besides, as popular as the show's getting, I think Fox would have put some money in.
They probably would have.
You know, give them a little scratch. A little something for your trouble.
A little something for your trouble.
You know, that's what I'm saying. Give them a little bit of a extra bump in their salary for the season. At least for the season.
At least for the season.
Then after the season, they go back to making their regular money.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't, I'm saying, bump the salary up a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. By the end of the decade, the real-to reality of cops becomes even more detached from what's really happening in the country.
Yes.
So now it's starting to get where it's like, okay, now it's not even looking like the real world anymore. Mostly because it's getting too fucked up, is what we're saying. The violence of the war on drugs reached its peak in 1991. And by 1999, rates of violent crime across the country drop almost 50% and keep dropping. But every year that Pew Research tracks it, they show Americans believe violent crime is just steadily going up. So because they're seeing so much crime on cops, they think crime is still going. They don't know in real life it's dropping. The 90s. It's going down real low. And so there's a gap that ends up happening between perception and reality. And the climate of outsized fear that cops has helped create is about to get much, much worse. By the end of the 90s, cops is showing its age. Ratings are a quarter of what they once were. But the way we look at law enforcement is about to change dramatically after 9/11.
True.
Because the war on drugs gives way to the war on terror. Yes. Police force becomes increasingly militarized in the name of keeping America safe. And oh boy, is it. And you know when it really hit home for me that was the case? In 2014, when Steven and I went to Survivor Series. Because that was the year that ISIS threatened to blow up the Phillips Arena, which is now State Farm. And there were a lot of people saying, Vinny, you shouldn't go. I'm like, I don't go. I made the whole, that's why I hate the saying, I ain't afraid of no ISIS. I said, I don't give a fuck. If that's how I die, that's how I die. Steven and I were brave enough to go. Fox 5 interviewed us, or just me. And it was awesome. But to make sure everything was happening, I literally saw police officers. Not FBI, not SWAT team, Atlanta police in fucking military vests, fucking AK-47s, helmets, outside the fucking building. Good luck if you were a terrorist trying to get into that fucking building. They were ready to open fire on your ass.
Yes, that's true.
Remember when Bruce Willis said, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker?
Yippee-ki-yay.
They were ready to go, assalamu alaikum, motherfucker. It was about to become a whole new fucking phrase. Oh, it was done. It was done. And more than ever, cops are universally being held up as national heroes. Now, let's say this. I don't think all the cops in the world are national heroes, but you got to give that to the NYPD. After 9/11, NYPD, they're national heroes.
Yes, they are.
NYFD, they're national heroes. The ones in New York, they're national heroes. They are. You don't get to take that title away from them.
No, you do not.
Because they, all of them, put their lives on the line on 9/11.
Yes, they did.
Fire department was saving lives. Police was saving lives. That was a national crisis. So the NYPD can call themselves national heroes. The rest of the cops and the rest of the world, y'all can lighten up just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But NYPD, no.
No.
You show them fucking respect. All right. For a growing number of Americans, it seems obvious that keeping America safe really means keeping white people safe. The killing of Trayvon Martin and the acquittal of the man who pulled the trigger just confirms these beliefs. Activists reach out to the company that helped define American Museum of Policing to see if they might want to cancel the show in light of this new reality. Fox refused to do so. Mm-hmm. But with more pressure, Fox reconsiders. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's my question. Now, obviously the Trayvon Martin thing fucked up.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know.
I remember that.
And again, this is another scenario where how the fuck do you not put the guy in jail?
He wasn't a law enforcement officer in the first place. He should.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, the loophole they had was in Florida, there is a stand your ground law. But last time I checked, now, this is the story that I remember. If I'm wrong about any of this, comment below. Feel free to correct me. If you have accurate information, I'm open to being corrected. But this is how I remember it. Trayvon Martin walking through a neighborhood. This guy was a member, George Zimmerman, I think his name was. He was part of the neighborhood watch. He confronts him. What are you doing here? He says he lives here. Don't know if that's true or not. Something happened, and he shot him. Now, some say Trayvon attacked him.
Proof of that.
Some say he just shot him for no reason. I don't think either one of those are true. I do think maybe he didn't think the guy was in the neighborhood. He probably thought he was wearing a hoodie, that he was up to no good. And he thought he had a gun in his pocket, but it turned out to be Skittles. I don't know. Again, I don't remember. But either way, last time I checked, the stand your ground law applied to your property. Like, if you're on the front porch of if you're on your property, your grass, your porch, whatever, and someone trespasses on your property, and you say, get the fuck off my property, and they don't get the fuck off your property, you can shoot. I do know there are some places where if they step on your property, and you give them a chance to get the fuck off my property, and they don't get the fuck off your property, you are allowed to shoot them. Because they did not get off your property.
Very true, sir.
But I don't think you can do that if you're in the middle of the goddamn street. That don't work.
No, it don't.
Again, that shit doesn't work. Or if you're in your car, get the fuck away from my car.
Get away from the car.
You're going to carjack me or whatever. So there's a lot of scenarios here. And so there's a lot of, so obviously George is completely in the wrong. Mm-hmm. But here's the question I want to ask. Mm-hmm. How does Fox canceling Cops solve the problem?
It doesn't.
Again, you're blaming the media for other people's behavior. Like, oh, we can't show cops in a positive light because other cops are doing bad things. That doesn't make sense.
No, it does not.
That there's no logic in that. Because clearly, from what else we're about to talk about, canceling the show didn't do nothing, did it?
Nope.
Did it make that go down? No, it didn't. If anything, shit went sky high.
It went high.
So really, canceling a show does nothing. If you think that canceling a show is going to solve a problem, you're an idiot.
True.
Again, we already agree Trayvon was unjust.
Yes, it was.
Trayvon murder is unjust. But canceling Cops ain't gonna solve it.
Nope.
So, Fox cancels its longest running series in 2013 after 25 seasons on air. But Cops gets second life on another network. They move to Spike TV.
Spike TV, yes.
Yeah, so Spike TV, right here, ladies and gentlemen. So they find a new home over there because Spike TV becomes television for men.
Yes.
Because it was supposed to counteract Lifetime, which is television for women. Which is weird because almost every movie involves women getting raped and beaten up. So why would women want to watch that? It brought new eyes to the network and increased its viewership. The show's successful run on cable proves there's an audience that thinks Cops still have stories worth telling. Showing what cops do is essential for people to see. Mm-hmm. And again, this is what I talked about before with balance.
Balance.
The problem with cops wasn't that it was showing cops in a good way. It was the fact that there was no balance. It was showing only good and never bad. Just like how the internet today shows only bad and nothing good.
Very true.
You need the balance. You need to show cops doing good things. You need to show cops doing bad things. Just, you need to know there's good and bad in everything. Just like how it's wrong to show only black people committing crimes. And then you assume all black people are criminals. Which is not true. There's plenty of black people who work hard, make money, pay their taxes, and are productive members of society. Yeah. You need to show both to show the happy middle ground. You can't show too much of the other.
Very true.
Because it skewers things. And I know this because I've been, as I mentioned before, I've been around black people. I've seen both.
Yeah.
I've been around black people who make money, are successful, good family people, 2-parent households, loving families. I've seen it. Mm-hmm. I've also seen black people who will rob you and steal you and do drugs and sell themselves on the street. Mm-hmm. I've seen both.
I've seen both too.
I've seen both. So you can't tell me one's wrong and not the other. I've seen it all.
Yes.
Seen it all.
Seen it all.
Okay. In fact, I'll let you know a little secret. Part of the reason I've seen the whole things were about being robbed is because I went in with non-judgmental eyes. Was how I got robbed one time. Now I keep the eyelids on.
Yes.
I look. I know what to see. But today, the internet delivers its own version of this show without police censoring what they don't like.
Yeah.
And 25 years after Rodney King's shocking video evidence of police killing black men is piling up, there are now videos on phones that capture negative police behavior as mentioned before.
Everybody has to record everything.
Because we see it.
Yes,
and again, but the problem is, here's the thing. They're only showing the negative. Yeah. They're not showing positive things too. The internet videos are just as bad as cops. They're just going the other way. Because you don't want people to think that cops don't do bad things. But you also don't want people to think that if you're in trouble, you can't rely on police. Because there are cops who do good for the community. So now they're going too far the other way. Now again, just to be clear, I do agree this negative shit does need to be seen. I'm not saying don't show it. I'm just saying you can't make that the only thing you put on the internet. You got to put positive stuff too. To show the balance in the middle ground. That's what needs to be seen. Demands for justice and police accountability get louder until the widening gap between police you see on cops and the police you see on YouTube triggers global outrage. At the height of the protests, Cops is canceled again. 1 year later, the show's creator John Langley dies of a heart attack driving a cross-country off-road race in Mexico. But despite Langley's death, Koch, much like the debate over policing in America, lives on. So now, there's the global outrage, which of course leads to the Black Lives Matter incidents. Mm-hmm. Like Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake, Rashard Brooks. Now, there's been others, but those are the 5 main ones that we know about. Now, here's my take on the whole thing. On Black Lives Matter. Do I think Black Lives Matter? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do I support the organization? No. And I'll tell you why I don't. Because my only gripe with Black Lives Matter is every time somebody black gets shot by cops, before they do anything else, they immediately take that person's name, add it to their list to keep their cause going. They just grab a name, add it to the list, say their name and acknowledge them and everything. No, I don't do that. See, what I do is I look at every individual case, and based on the case, I judge whether or not the cops acted rationally. And I'll break them down right now. Ahmaud Arbery, we'll start with him. He was murdered. What happened to him was wrong. And for those who don't remember, here was the case. He was jogging in his neighborhood. I believe he lived in Brunswick, Georgia.
Yep.
2 people accused him of breaking into a house, made a citizen's arrest. There was a struggle, and he was shot. Here's why this was wrong. First of all, we saw the camera footage. He didn't break into a house. If anything, he walked into a garage that was open. And guess what? The garage was empty. Nobody was even in that house. I don't think anybody even owned that house. And you know what he was doing? Catching his breath and getting out of the sun. That's all he did. He stood in the shade, caught his breath because he was jogging. And then, after he got his wind back, he went back out and jogged. Didn't touch nothing. Didn't walk through the garage door into the house. No point. This man vandalized a single thing. Now, could he have gotten in trouble for trespassing? Maybe. If there were people living in that house and they themselves wanted to press charges, okay, they could do that. But as far as what crime did he commit, other than trespassing, nothing. Didn't vandalize, didn't steal, did nothing. Went back out and jogged. Also, here's the other thing. The 2 people who made the citizen's arrest were not within their rights to make a citizen's arrest.
Nope.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because in the state of Georgia, the law states that in order to make a citizen's arrest, you must catch the person in the act. For them to have made a citizen's arrest, they would have had to have been at the house, in the garage where he was standing in, and citizens arrest him for trespassing. And even then, they could not fire that gun unless they were attacked. They could point the gun, they call the police, you detain them till police arrive. And once the police arrive, you drop that fucking gun immediately. Second that car pulls up, gun on the ground. You put that sumbitch on the floor. Why? Because you don't want to give that cop a reason to draw his gun at you.
Very true.
Or at the very least, be holding it in another direction and have your other hand up, at least. And then when the cop says drop the gun, you drop it immediately. Don't even argue. Go down.
Go down.
They violated the citizen's arrest. They had no right to stop him. They had no right to point that gun at him. Even if he did wrestle that gun from you, you had no right to point it in the first place. Because you had no right to detain him. That was unjust. There you go.
Pretty much.
Number 2, we'll go to George Floyd. Now, granted, not exactly a model American, this guy, and someone I would not make the poster man for Black Lives Matter. I would make Ahmaud Arbery because he was actually a good person. Doesn't excuse the fact that he was in fact murdered. No reason to keep that knee on the back of his head for 8.5 minutes. Although, I will say, the crime he was being charged with, apparently the crime he was charged with was paying a fraudulent check at a retail store. Now, y'all aren't going to like what I'm about to say right now, but after 13 years, and I say that, 13 years of retail experience, I can say this. Almost every time I have gotten a bad check, someone paid with a check, and it declined, or it was fraudulent, or whatever, almost every time that happened, it was somebody black paying with a check. And that's coming off 13 years of retail experience. Now, did every black person that paid with a check be fraudulent? No. I've had black people who paid with checks and they cleared. I've had people pay with credit cards that were approved. I've had them pay me in cash, and it's been perfect. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day. But whenever I got bad checks, it was somebody black sending me that check. So, just saying, statistically, it's not outside the realm of possibility he was guilty of that. But still, did not deserve to die. George Floyd did not deserve to die that day. It was unjust, and the man who did that deserved to go to jail. So, yes, that was a murder. That was unjust. I can agree with that one. Next, Breonna Taylor. Here's where this gets a little milky. Because there were 3 cops involved in this. Of the 3, 2 of them belonged in jail. 1 did not. I'll tell you why. Basically, here's the story. Apparently, there was a warrant for the boyfriend's arrest. They had a no-knock warrant, which nowadays in that town is illegal. They've now since passed the law saying you can no longer do that. But at the time of the arrest, it was legal and on the books. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you think it's unjust or not, no-knock warrants at this time, it was legal. They were following the rules. One cop walked into the house as per his right. The boyfriend, as I recall, and again, if I'm wrong, comment below with anything that I'm misreading here. And I'll make an apology. But to my knowledge, at no point did the boyfriend say who's in the house. I don't think he addressed anybody. I don't think any words were spoken. But the boyfriend came out with a gun and shot the cop in the leg. That cop who got shot in the leg then returned fire. Now at this point, there is one cop in the house. There's one cop standing at the outside doorway, and there's another cop outside by the bedroom door where the curtains are drawn. Shut. Can't see in there. All three cops open fire. Bad move. Now, the cop who got shot in the leg had every right to return fire on that guy. Every right. You shot the cop. Whatever reason you want to give, whatever story you want to spin, bottom line is you put a bullet in a cop's leg. That cop can now shoot you. Once you shoot a bullet at a cop, all bets are off. Now the cop in the doorway, he got no business shooting because he doesn't have a clear shot at anything. And the lady shooting outside can't see shit in that window. So for all we know, she could have been the one that killed Brianna. So the cop in the doorway and the cop that was outside the bedroom window, those two cops should be locked up. The cop who got shot in the leg should have been allowed to go home. Send him home. You are wasting time with him. He had every right to return fire. So if his bullets hit Brianna, that is an accidental death. Because again, they were following textbook procedures. Now, again, since that time, they have changed the law. You must now knock if you have a warrant. So now if somebody comes in with a no-knock warrant, they are violating protocol. They are violating the rules. They should be in trouble. So like I said, Brianna did not deserve to die.
No.
But that's where it's a little milky. Now, here's the part where I'm fitting to piss some people off. Because those are the three that I agree with. We're now about to get to the two that I don't. Rashard Brooks. This guy's a fucking idiot. Sorry, but he is. I'm gonna tell you why. Cops find him drunk in his car in a Wendy's parking lot. In the drive-thru, I think it was. Some say it was a drive-thru, it was in the parking lot. Regardless, he's drunk and behind the wheel of a car. Even if it's parked, he's still drunk in public. Behind the wheel of a car. Cops pull him out. Ask for his license, registration, and everything. Ask him to blow into a breathalyzer. He does so. They find out he is over the legal limit. They then decide to handcuff him. And everything's going calm at this point. From the video, everything's calm. Right when they go to put the cuffs on, he starts resisting. And then he tussles with the cop. The cop gets thrown on the ground. The cop who was on the ground pulled out his taser. Now think about that for a minute. Cop just got thrown on the ground. Even in that moment, this police officer could have drawn his gun. Did not. Drew the taser. Before he can fire out the taser, Rashard Brooks takes the taser. Runs down the fucking parking lot, turns around, and fires the taser at the cop. Which, in the state of Georgia, firing a taser is the equivalent to shooting a firearm. And that is law. So when he fires that taser, cop pulls out his gun, shoots Rashard Brooks. This was not even an unarmed black man getting shot. So I'm sorry. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
Yep.
Anything that happened after that? In fact, there was even footage that said they were trying to resuscitate him before ambulances came. Yeah, I don't know if that's true. That's just what I heard. That's what I recall. But I'm sorry. Rashard Brooks is a fucking idiot.
Yes, he is.
That was stupid.
They burned down the Wendy's afterwards.
Yes! They burned down the fucking Wendy's.
I understand.
For a guy who did something stupid.
Stupid.
And then we get to the last guy, Jacob Blake. This is hilarious to me. Alright, this guy. Cops go to arrest Jacob Blake. Apparently, he's been accused of sexual assault. 3rd-degree sexual assault. He's been charged with sexual assault. The cops go to arrest him. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Zach, what did I say about cops when they arrest somebody?
To put Miranda on them.
Yeah, but I'm saying, when they arrest you, what is their job?
To arrest you, not hurt you, take you to jail.
Yes. That's it, right? That's their job.
Yes.
Whether or not Jacob Blake is guilty of sexual assault is irrelevant. Whether he did it or not. Doesn't matter at this point. Point is, this is the crime he's being charged with. There's a warrant for his arrest. The cops are required to bring him in so he can await trial to see if he's guilty or not guilty of this crime. That's all the cops are required to do. This guy argues with the cops, refuses to fucking go. Apparently they tried every means of subduing and nothing worked. He's walking away from the cops to go get something out of his car, reaches into his car, and then gets shot 7 times. And everybody's sitting here going, I can't believe he shot him 7 times. I'm sitting here going, I can't believe he's reaching in his car. At this point, you've seen 4 or 5 other people getting shot by cops. Don't you think maybe after a certain point you should go, hey, maybe I ought to cooperate with these fucking people and not get fucking shot? I mean, seriously, a cop is arresting you. The fact that it's taking this long to even get you in the car, you are resisting at this point. All you had to do was get in the fucking car and go to fucking jail. But no. And why are you reaching for anything? Why are you reaching for anything when a cop is with you? That's why they always say, hands where I can see them. The second you reach for something, they're drawing their guns because they don't know what you're reaching for. They don't know if you're reaching for a gun. Apparently he was reaching for a knife, allegedly. I don't know if he's reaching for a candy bar. Whatever the fuck you got, don't reach for shit. That's why they tell you when a cop pulls you over, have the hands at 10 and 2. They need to see your fucking hands. If you're going to reach for something, explain to the cop, yes, my registration is in the glove compartment. Let me reach in there and go get it. And if you have a gun in there, you can say, sir, here's my conceal and carry license. I do have a firearm in there. I'm not going, I need to move it out of the way to get the registration. So I'm just letting you know because I don't want you to think anything bad's going to happen. I'm just going to put it right here on the seat. And you open the glove compartment. I'm grabbing it. I have it right here on the seat. And I dig. Here's your registration, sir. Like, that's simple. The more you cooperate, the less likely you are to make this shit happen. Now, again, there are bad cops. Sometimes this shit's not going to work with bad cops. But cooperating with the police decreases your chances of this shit happening. If you give a cop a reason to use excessive force, they're going to use it.
Yes, they will.
Again, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And that's what I gotta say about that.
Same here.
So there we go. But those are the 5 main ones, and I had to talk about that. So of the 5, 3 were murdered, 2 were dumbasses. And hopefully, God forbid, there won't be others to talk about in the future. As of October 2021, new episodes of Cops, produced by Langley Sun, are once again airing in the U.S. on a streaming site owned by Fox News. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap up this week's episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the 90s. Zach, thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you guys tune in next week. We're going to have a more fun subject to talk about here. It's one that Zach's not 100% excited about, but I still think it's going to be a good one.
Yes.
UFC, baby. Part 1.
Part 1.
No holds barred.
No holds barred.
It's a 2-parter, baby. And the first part's next week. So
yes.
Make sure you guys follow us on all of our podcast platforms. Links are down in the description box below. Follow us on our social media platforms. Links are down in the description box below. Support the Boochcast. Go to anchor.fm/theboochcast/support. Link is down in the description box below. And of course, as always, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified so you never miss another episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the 90s, as well as other additional Boochcast YouTube content. Talk to you guys next time. Until then, Pizza, baby!